our meeting. I guess I'm like twice. I don't know why. I can hear myself.
Yes, Louis, you have an echo. Is everybody else hearing the echo?
No.
Yes, that's because Lewis is logged in twice.
How?
So even if you mute yourself for whatever reason, whoever comes in twice is always an echo.
Can
He
can
didn't do
you
that in
can
first
you
check.
mute me in one?
It's bad, Louis.
Really? Oh my God. Okay, so let me see
I,
how I
I
do
hear you like
this.
3, 4 times. It sounds creepy.
All right, that should be
What
better.
about now?
Lewis, go ahead.
What about now? Better?
A lot better, yeah, because I deleted the Lewis imposter. I deleted him out of here. So
Thank you, thank you.
Much better,
So
Louis.
thank you very much. So good evening, everyone. I don't know if you see me, but I don't see you now. So I guess okay, now I see you.
I see you.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. As a staff from the community board, we have Cynthia, we have Ralph Azevedo, our district manager, and he's going to record the conversation. First of all, I just want to welcome everyone today. Our agenda is basic today. We have only one presenter, but I know her presentation is a little longer. So once we have her presentation, we have Belinda Simmons from the New York City Commission of Human Rights. She's gonna do her presentation. Then we're gonna have old business, new business announcement, and then we adjourn our meeting. So let's begin. Thank you, Belinda, for being here today. And just before you begin talking about the Commission of Human Rights, if you could, can you define what the New York City Commission of Human Rights is in a very simple and rice and beans definition?
Well, listen, I'll try to do my best. First, I'd like to thank you for having me today. And, that would be part of my presentation on what the Commission on Human Rights is. But basically, we're a city agency that enforces the New York City human rights law. And
Okay.
that law says that, in essence, everybody has to be treated fairly, regardless of their, race, color, creed, national origin, etc.
Okay, that sounds fair. A good definition. Thank you. So Belinda, go ahead. But as a matter of fact, I just want to let you know I did my homework. I went to your website and I got a lot of resources. What I'm gonna do once I do the minutes of the meeting, I just want to make sure I add all the information that I found because it's a lot, and it covers many things that I never thought you will cover. I mean, your office will cover. So I just want to make sure that everybody has that same information. So I'll make sure that when I do the minutes, I add all these resources that I found from the website.
Great. Okay.
Okay, you may begin.
Okay. If Cynthia, if you could put up the slides, I would appreciate it.
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Well, while she's doing that, just to let you know a little bit about me. As my name is Belinda Simmons, and I'm an associate human rights specialist. And I began working with the New York City Commission on Human Rights in the late 1980s. I currently work at our office located in the Bronx at 1932 Arthur Avenue. I started out with the commission working in our law enforcement bureau, which you will hear about in the presentation. And now I work in the Community Relations Bureau. And in the Community Relations Bureau, that's where we educate the community on the human rights law. And we give many different types of presentations, including the one I'm about to give tonight, which will be an overview of the human rights law.
Okay. So we're waiting for the presentation.
Yeah, I sent it to Ralph. I was actually just texting him, letting him know I sent
Okay.
it.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, as soon as Cynthia, you just sent it.
Yeah, I
All right.
sent
As
it.
soon as I get it. So I don't know if maybe you want to. It might take because if it's a large file, it's going to take a minute or two. So,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you want.
So maybe then we can
If you want to just come
have.
back to it. As soon as I get it, I'll put it right up. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so maybe we can have the announcement that somebody else was gonna do about
Jennifer.
Jennifer.
Maybe yes. You're just even be quiet. I'm sorry. Oh, you wanted me to speak?
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
share your announcement.
Oh,
now.
yes. So I just wanted to update you guys. So this morning, as you know, Mayor de Blasio made an announcement that senior centers are allowed to open for in-person as of June 14, and outside services are to be, meaning any services that the center wants to provide, let's say outside in the park or in the backyard, is to resume effective immediately. I'm
Nice.
sorry. I'm sorry.
No
I
worries.
put the mic in
No
so I
worries.
cried.
Thank
And
you.
so we reached out to the Department of Health, asking if we are obviously included in that. And we are waiting on DOH. I had written guidance that was provided to the Deputy Mayor's office last week. It was given to the Department of Health today. So we're assuming in the next few days, they're going to give the social daycares a date to resume for in-person services as well. So as soon as we have a date, I will let you guys know so you can stop by and visit.
Sure. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
No problem.
Does anyone have an additional update or something?
Well,
Yeah,
I
Louis,
emailed
Louis,
Go ahead.
Yes.
I don't know. It's rolling. I got
How are you?
How you doing, everybody? I like to just say that I'm getting together with this lawyer, and we're going to maybe do a documentary on the spraying of those pesticides that are causing cancer, that they spray for the West Nile virus, the mosquitoes in the summer. So also at Lincoln Hospital, okay? So I'll give you an update on that as soon as I get together with the lawyer and the health department. Thank you.
Oh, that sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Right.
Come get my charger from my
Ready, Ralph, a little bit more.
One more second. I'm sorry. So
All right, while they
I want to
doing
make.
that,
I'm sorry, Cynthia.
I'm
I
sorry,
just
so
wanna-
while they doing that, I'm sorry, me first. I emailed everyone that's on right now from the Department of Health where they're gonna be spraying, so you should have it in your email. So after the meeting, if you want to take a look at it, that's exactly what Roland Lopez is talking about. That way
Right.
you know what's going on. Okay.
That's
I'm sorry,
Thank
Ralph.
you, Cynthia. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we got that today. That's why we sent. And I saw Roland earlier today. He mentioned this to me, so
Right.
I'm happy that Roland is on here now discussing it. So
Okay.
good stuff. So
Thanks, Ralph.
no, thank you, Roland. Thank you. I mean, this
Right.
is something
Okay.
that affects our community overall, and it was an
You
item
better
that
believe
was
it.
discussed in environmental. Now we
Right.
can discuss it in health. So good stuff. Yes.
Right.
Good. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
and Ms. Simmons, the presentation is 51 slides. So I don't know how we're gonna, I don't know. It's up to the chair, but I just want to acknowledge that it's 51 slides.
Yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through them really fast, and I might skip a lot of slides too.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. No problem. So just let me know when you're ready. I think we lost her there.
Yeah, it was loading. I guess. Yeah, her connection went somewhere.
Mr. Chair, while she's coming back, Ray Arroyo has his hand raised.
Oh, okay, Ray, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. And I have to cut out early, but I just wanted to remind, if possible, we have our community council elections this Thursday. It's a big meeting. That this is the election that decides who sits on the 41st council for the next 2 years. So, if you guys could spread the word, it's supposed to be in front of the precinct, but as of this morning, we were looking at the weather and it's looking at rain and 20-mile-an-hour winds. So I'll probably relocate it to the banknote building, 845 Barretto Street on the second floor, just to keep us out of the rain and make sure we can have a good election.
And when is it going to be again?
It's this Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Scheduled for the front of the precinct, but tentatively will be rescheduled due to bad weather to 845 Barretto Street at the banknote building, second floor.
So it's June 3rd.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
No, thank you.
And this is open to everyone who wants to go, right?
Oh, yeah, the meeting is always open to the entire community.
But the election,
And the elections are the eligibility to vote.
right?
You have to have been present for 4 meetings within the past 24 months.
Okay,
So,
that's important.
Yeah, so I scoured the attendance rolls for the past 24 months, and we generated a list of close to 40 people that are eligible voters.
How many you have eligible?
I'm sorry, I think we have about 40 people that are eligible to vote. But you have to be present to vote. There are no absentee votes.
Sure. This is not like the election.
Yeah, no, sorry.
All right. I think definitely we lost. Yeah.
Yeah, we like
Hi,
completely lost it here.
Hi, this is Sonia Ferguson. I wanted
Hey,
to
Sonia.
announce, hi everybody doing. This is a health issue on Fridays between 10 and 1 p.m. on Kelly Street between 163rd and Interville. We're giving out free fresh produce. So please let everybody know, just to keep us healthy. It's fresh from the farm, okay?
Okay, Sonia, can you say it again? Where it's going to be?
It's Kelly Street between 163rd and Interville Avenue. It's our Kelly Garden, but we're out on the sidewalk, and we give out fresh produce every Friday between 10 to 1 p.m. We should extend all the way up into the end of August, okay?
I actually sent that flyer out today too. So it's in a.
Oh, okay.
All right, so I send that out.
Thank you.
I send it out every week, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to take the opportunity to let everyone knows that Urban Health Plan is still vaccinating people, those who haven't gotten vaccinated yet. Now we're providing Pfizer, Moderna, and Johnson & Johnson. As you know, kids over 12 years old are now allowed to get vaccinated only with Pfizer. So I just want to let you know that our Urban he's vaccinated at Bella Vista, which is in Hunts Point, and in Nuevo San Juan, which is in Southern Boulevard, 1065. And we're getting there, so please motivate people to get vaccinated.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back now. I'm sorry about that.
It's all right. It's all right, Belinda.
Let me know when
I'm ready. Just let me know. Just say like next slide or something like that, and I'm with you, okay?
next slide. Okay. The New York City Commission on Human Rights enforces the city's human rights law and educates the public on their rights and responsibilities under the law, which I had mentioned earlier. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. The commission is divided into 4 different areas: the Community Relations Bureau, Law Enforcement, Office of Mediation, Conflict and Resolution, and the Office of the Chair. I work in community relations, and that's basically, as I said, I go out and I educate the public about their rights and responsibilities. The second is law enforcement. Law enforcement is where we have our attorneys, and they actually do the investigations of the complaints that come in. We have the Office of Mediation and Conflict Resolution. Here we try to see if we can resolve complaints before an actual investigation. This takes a shorter time to do, and it saves money for the respondents, not necessarily for the city, because it doesn't cost us anything. Lastly, we have the Office of the Chair, and that's where the commissioner, that's her office. And right now, the commissioner is Carmelyn Morales, and she's the one who makes the final decisions on cases that go to hearings. And based on those cases, that's where we come up with some of our new policies and procedures regarding the law. Next slide. Okay, we have an office in all 5 boroughs. Our main office is in Manhattan. And if you want to reach us, you can get us through 311. Next slide. Okay, these are the areas of discrimination that are covered under the law: employment, public accommodations, housing, discriminatory harassment, bias-based profiling by law enforcement. In most cases, you have 1 year to file a claim with us, 1 year from the most recent discriminatory act. If it's more than 1 year, but less than 3 years, you can go into state court to file a discrimination complaint. However, the only case you can file with a 3-year statute at the New York City Commission on Human Rights is gender-based discrimination. Next slide. Okay, what is discrimination? Discrimination is basically unfair and unequal treatment of a person or group based on certain characteristics or membership in a protected class. It's multidimensional, and it affects the way people are treated in all domains of society: education, employment, health services, housing, and the criminal justice system, to name a few. Next. In order to establish a complaint of discrimination with us, you have to show a relationship of the people that were involved. For employment, that would be the employee and the employer. In housing, it would be the tenant and the landlord. In a public accommodation, which is any place that provides a service to the public, it would be the customer and the actual public accommodation. Discriminatory harassment and bias-based profiling are different, and there doesn't have to be a relationship. Next slide. Now, New York City has the most comprehensive discrimination law in the entire country. There are 3 levels of government offices that cover discrimination. There's the City Commission on Human Rights, there's the State Division on Human Rights, and then there's the Federal Commission, which is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, better known as EEOC. We cover more areas of protected classes than any other state and the federal government. And as you can see here, these are just, we have about 25 categories that we cover, and they're from age all the way to uniform services. Now, I'm going to talk about some of them because some of them are not as so self-explanatory and some are recently added. For instance, when we talk about color and race discrimination, we've recently added natural hair, where based on your natural hair style, you cannot be discriminated against. And this specifically falls for people based on their race and color, national origin, and religion. We also have pre-employment marijuana testing, meaning that an employer cannot test an applicant for marijuana. There are exceptions, such as police officers. If you're going to be a police officer, yes, you can be tested. If you're going for a commercial license, yes, you can be tested. Those are the very few exceptions. We also, we have uniform services, which is the military, that has been added within the last few years. Also, caregivers. Next slide. Who is protected under the law? Well, when it comes to employment, Anybody that works in New York City, the employer has to have at least 4 or more employees. The last incident of discrimination had to happen within the last year. And except in the case of gender-based discrimination, as I said, you have 3 years to file. You also have the option of going to the state court if you don't want to file with us. Next slide. How do we determine who is an employee? How do we count them? Well, we count the employers themselves, independent contractors and freelancers, employers' spouses, parents, domestic partners, or child if they are working there. And all the employees do not have to work in New York City. For instance, if the employer has more than one office, and in the New York City office he has 2 employees, but let's say in New Jersey he has 5 employees. Well, we count those employees too, even though they don't work in New York City. So the 2 employees in the New York City office will be covered under our law. Next slide. Okay, and we cover just about everybody. Interns, paid or unpaid, undocumented workers, part-time and probationary workers, domestic workers, independent contractors, and freelancers. Next slide. Now, when it comes to employment discrimination, there are basically 3 categories: hiring, firing, and terms of conditions in employment. When it comes to hiring, you have to hire someone based on their skills, not because of their protected class. For instance, if you're looking for a person who can cook Peruvian food, you would say you want a waiter or waitress with experience in Peruvian cuisine, as opposed to a Peruvian waiter. You can't say no criminal history. No questions can you ask about a person's protected class. Protected classes are what we just mentioned. You can't ask about a person's age, national origin, etc. Same thing with firing. You can't fire a person because of a group they belong to. For instance, you can't fire everybody over a certain age. That's age discrimination. You can't fire somebody based on their national origin. Next slide. When it comes to terms and conditions of employment, everybody has to be treated equally, meaning everybody has to be paid the same amount that's doing the same job. You can't treat people differently, saying, for instance, if you're undocumented, you get paid less. No, that is discrimination under our law. Next slide. Okay. Pregnancy. What a lot of women don't know, you don't have to let your employer know that you are pregnant. Usually when you go for an interview for a new job, you tell the employer that you're pregnant if you're not showing. You do not have to do that. If you are already on a job and you need an accommodation due to your pregnancy, you do not have to bring a note from your doctor saying you need an accommodation. You could just ask the employer. Next slide. Okay, employers now have to provide a place for a woman to express milk on the job. Okay, so this would be considered like a lactation room. And a lactation room is a sanitary place other than a restroom that can be used to express milk, and it includes a minimum of an electric outlet, a chair, a surface on which to place a breast pump and other items. And employers must provide a reasonable time for the woman to pump. Next slide. Okay, next slide. Okay. Gender identity and gender expression. Transgender and gender non-conforming persons are covered under our human rights law, meaning they are entitled to use the bathroom consistent with their gender identity, use their personal name, title, and pronoun, and dress and groom themselves in a manner appropriate to their gender identity or expression. Next slide. Arrest and conviction record. Okay, this is where we have the Fair Chance Act. An employer cannot ask about a person's criminal history prior to offering them a job. That's a conditional offer, meaning that everybody has the right to apply for a job, no matter what their criminal background is. Now, once the job has been offered to the applicant, then the employer can say to them, okay, I want to hire you for the job, but now I need to do a background check. That's legal. Okay, next slide. Okay, an employer, after they make a conditional offer of employment, can do the background check. If the employer decides after the background check to disqualify the applicant, the employer must give a written explanation and a copy of the criminal record they relied on for the job to the applicant. And they must hold the job open for 3 days for the applicant to respond. Next slide. Caregivers. This is something that was also added to our law, recently within the last few years. What is a caregiver? A caregiver is a person who provides direct and ongoing care for a minor child or a care recipient. Now, to define what a care recipient is a person with a disability who is a covered relative or a person who resides in a caregiver's household and relies on a caregiver for medical care or to meet the needs of daily living. A covered relative is a caregiver's child, spouse, domestic partner, parent, siblings, grandchild or grandparent, or the child or parent of the caregiver's spouse or domestic partner, or any other individual in a familial relationship with the caregiver as designated by the rules of the commission. Next slide. Okay, now, under our law, we have disability as one of our protected classes. COVID is considered a disability. And our law states that harassment and discrimination on the basis of a person's race, national origin, age, and disability, including having COVID or any other serious illness, is illegal under our law. The commission considers actual or perceived infection with COVID to be protected as a disability. Employers, like I said, cannot discriminate against these employees who are infected or not infected. It is also illegal for an employer to harass or discriminate against an employee based on the presumption that they have contracted or are more likely to contract COVID due to the actual or perceived race. For instance, because because an employee is Asian, some employees might think they're more likely to have COVID. Because a person is over a certain age or because a person may have underlying conditions, they may be more susceptible to COVID, but the employer can't treat them differently. Next slide.
I'm sorry, Belinda. I just have a question about COVID and employer, and this is something that I've been hearing around, and I just want to maybe it falls into here. That's why I want to ask you, if you have an employer who now wants to say everybody, it wants to introduce a new policy in their employee, in their organization, that they want to make sure. They want, let me see how I say, that they want to make sure everybody who works in the organization is vaccinated. Can they change a policy or now, like required all associate employees to be vaccinated?
Okay, let me just tell you, next slide. We're going to talk a little bit about that, but with COVID, things are changing every day.
Okay.
Just to let you know, the information that I got off of our website regarding COVID was updated in January of this year. Things have changed. That's why we cannot give out these slides. because the law is constantly changing. We're going to get to that when we're
Okay.
talking about reasonable accommodations in employment.
Okay.
Our law states that an employer has to provide reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities, including pregnant women, employees with victims of domestic violence, and employees who have religious observances that they, want to meet. Employees are entitled to a reasonable accommodation which do not cause an undue hardship to the business. Now, let's go to the next slide. Okay, examples of reasonable accommodations, including now when we're talking about COVID, allowing an employee to work remotely, identifying an employee's work duties, changing their schedule, and or providing a certain personal protective equipment. Employers must also implement business changes that are responsive to COVID-19 in a manner that allows for reasonable accommodations based on a person's disability, religion, etc. To reasonably accommodate an employee with a hearing disability, an employer may provide all staff with clear face coverings that enable the employee to read the coworker's lips. That's just one example. Retaliating against an employee because they requested an accommodation violates our law. We're still going to talk more about that. Next slide. Okay. Returning to work, consistent with employers' need to make reasonable steps to protect the health and safety of their businesses. Employees may require employees to provide evidence of their ability to safely return to work after recovering from COVID and to confirm they're not contagious. Employers are permitted to mandate certain safety precautions, such as vaccination requirements, distancing measures, and mask requirements. If an employee is unable to comply with the safety precautions due to a disability, pregnancy, religion, they may request a reasonable accommodation. And an employer will determine if this exception or alteration would pose an undue hardship to the company. Now, did that explain your question? Did I answer your question? I can't hear
Kind
you.
of. Yeah, kind of. But yeah, but my point is that, and I understand all what you said, but it's like, can the employer change their policy now and tell all staff, require all staff to be vaccinated? That's my question.
Okay. I can only tell you what's on the website. Okay,
Lois,
so this is
I could answer that. I could answer that. Your employer cannot mandate you to be vaccinated. They could recommend it, they could offer it to you, and they can make it easy for you to get it, but they cannot mandate you. The decision is yours. It's your body. They can give you pros and cons. It's the same thing like with the flu vaccine. Every year it's given, and you are not forced. They recommend it, but nobody is mandated to do so. It is your choice.
right about that. Now, the only thing is people are asking, if you decide as an employee not to get the vaccination, does the employer have the right not to let you come back to work? That's the question.
No, you have to sign a declination. You have to, that you're not taking it, and the reason, and actually you sign off that you know the risk, and they cannot fire you, and they cannot tell you not to return.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I asked the question because now, and this is something that maybe is a part of conversation that we may have in the future. Now, I understand that perfectly, but what happened with the employee who feels now threatened that somebody that is working with him or with her is not vaccinated and they can get sick and make them sick? So where is the right of that individual versus the other one? I mean, I'm just put it on the table.
As far as the Commission on Human Rights is concerned, okay, we don't have, there's nothing under our law regarding that because things are new. Okay, so things are going to be changing. Like I said, we updated, this is the information we put on our website as of January. We are now in June. A lot has happened and a lot has changed.
Right. Okay, it's all right.
So at this point, we are not telling anybody what they can and cannot do until we get updated information. The
Okay.
only thing that we tell people to do is, like we've been doing with everything else, you could do your research. You can reach out to attorneys, asking employment attorneys, what is the latest on that? The CDC, we don't know.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Interesting.
Okay, next slide. Okay, public accommodations, as I said, wherever you go to get a service, anybody that provides services to the public, they're covered under our law. So if you're discriminating in a store, taxi, gym, parks, movie theaters, they're all covered under our law except for educational institutions and private clubs. Next slide. How am I doing on time?
It's 5:41.
Okay. I'm gonna move through this, really fast. These are the protected classes under public accommodations. A lot of them are like employment, but not all of them. Next slide. Okay. These are just examples of how people are treated unfairly in public accommodations. A taxi driver refusing to pick up a person because of their race. A restaurant sitting certain people in certain areas and other groups of people, and not so good areas. A park preventing a transgender man from using the men's bathroom. A store targeting Black and Latino customers for shoplifting, and a homeless shelter not accommodating a resident or prospective resident with a disability. Next slide. Excuse me. Okay, when it comes to COVID public accommodations, same thing. Business owner cannot discriminate or harass a person based on the presumption that they have contracted or more likely to contract COVID-19 due to their race, national origin, disability, or any other protected class. I'm sorry. A business may exclude customers who show symptoms of being affected with COVID when the business reasonably believes they pose a direct threat to the health of staff or other customers, and if the threat cannot be adequately mitigated by a reasonable accommodation. Meaning, if, for instance, somebody has COVID, let's say, and a store and they refuse to put on a mask for whatever reason, then the store owner can say, look, instead of you coming into the store to shop, you could do one of two things. We could have one of our employees go around the store, shop for you, and bring the groceries out to you, or you can do it online. You can shop online and we can have it delivered to your house. That's mitigating, adequately mitigating, any threats to the job, to the people at the store or the public accommodation. Like I said, things are changing now. So, this might be, a little outdated, but we'll see. Next one, slide. Okay, and basically this is saying because the person is older, you can't say, we don't want you in here because, you're more susceptible to get COVID. You can't say because you're Asian, we don't want you in here because you're more susceptible to get COVID. Next slide. Okay, when it comes to housing, any person who is selling, renting, or leasing, landlords, superintendents, building managers, brokers, realtors cannot discriminate because of a person's actual perceived protected class, what we talked about earlier. There are a few exceptions. One are dormitories, meaning that if you have a dormitory just for females and a dormitory for males, that's not discriminatory. They're not covered under our law. Senior housing, Even though it's just for seniors or people with disabilities, that's not covered under our law. They're allowed to have that. If you want to rent out a room in your house or your apartment, you can decide who you want to live there. If I want to rent out a room in my apartment, I can say I only want females. That's not covered under the law, under our law, because I can decide who I want in my house. Secondly, with a two-family house, if the owner lives in one of the units and wants to rent out the other unit, if the owner does not advertise, then if the person that moves in is being discriminated, they're not covered under our law. If the landlord lives there and they advertise that apartment, meaning they go to a broker or they put a sign in a community center saying apartment for rent, somebody moves in and then the landlord starts discriminating against that person, then it's covered under our law because it was advertised. Next slide. Okay, these are the protected classes in housing. And what you see here that's different from employment is that children, if a person is living with children, you can't discriminate against them. So that's the lawful source of income, which we'll talk about, and lawful occupation. If a person is an attorney and they want to move into a building and the landlord said, no attorneys in here, that's a lawful occupation. You cannot turn them away. Next slide. Okay, as of February 15th of this year, our law was expanded to include all types of housing dwellings when it comes to vouchers. I'll talk about that after. Next slide. Lawful source of income is any form of a federal, state, local government housing assistance where a cash voucher is used. This could be income derived from Social Security, child support, alimony, and foster care subsidies, and it can include vouchers for security deposits, one-time emergency vouchers, and rental assistance vouchers. Next slide. And we know a lot of these vouchers: Section 8, HASA, City FEPS, SSI. These are all lawful sources of incomes when a landlord cannot say, we can't take you because of your voucher. Next one. Okay. As I said before, when it comes to housing, everybody has to be treated the same in housing. You can't refuse vouchers. You can't refuse to process renewal papers for somebody with a voucher. You can't refuse to rent an apartment because the tenant doesn't earn 40 times the rent. You can't print advertising stating that we do not accept vouchers. And you can't require credit checks when the voucher covers the entire rent and utilities. Next slide. Okay, we talked about that. And this is basically saying that if an apartment is rent controlled and that tenant has lived there when the law took effect in March 2008, landlord cannot, do anything to them, harass them or evict them because of their protected class to get them out. Next slide. Okay, we've talked about this. Everybody has to be treated the same in housing. Next slide. Okay, disability. Disability is any physical, medical, mental, or psychological impairment or history of it. And a person with a disability must be provided a reasonable accommodation. Next slide. Okay, accommodation means that anything that has to be done in order for the person to be able to use the premises to get into and out of and use the premises just like everybody else who is non-disabled. And a landlord or a business owner cannot say we're not going to make the accommodation because it poses an undue hardship. The commission will determine whether it's an undue hardship. Next slide. Okay, examples of reasonable accommodations: putting in ramps, installing grab bars or handrails in the bathroom, putting service animals, installing electric doors. Next slide. Now when it comes to COVID, A housing provider cannot harass or discriminate against residents, kick them out, or ask them to leave their apartment because of fears or stigma surrounding COVID. It is illegal for a housing provider to harass, to do this, and do this based on a presumption of that tenant due to their race, national origin, disability, or any other protected class. Next slide. Okay. Like I said, landlords have to provide accommodations for those with COVID, meaning housing providers must provide people with disabilities any sort of reasonable accommodation as long as it doesn't pose a hardship to that person. Next slide. Okay. Now, when you have a housing case, you have to connect the harassment with the protected class. First one, intimidating tenants to move out of their apartments because, or surrender their rights because they're African American. The illegal treatment is surrendering the apartment. The protected class is because they're African American. Failing to provide adequate heat because the tenant has children. The harassment is failing to provide heat. The protected class is because they're living with children. So these are just examples of the harassment and the protected class. You have to have a nexus between the two in order for it to be covered under our law. If the landlord is not providing heat in the building and everybody's not getting heat, that is not a discrimination complaint. Next slide. Okay, discriminatory harassment. Okay, these cases, we don't get as many as these cases because you don't have to have a relationship between two people. This is where you are threatened or intimidated for the purpose of interfering with your free exercise or enjoyment or any right or privilege secured by the Constitution of the United States. If you're harassed on the street, in a subway, in a public space, or in your building, because of any one of your protected classes, you can file a claim. But with these cases, it's usually kind of hard because if you're harassed on the subway, you don't know the name of the person who harassed you. You don't know their address, so it'd be hard for us to do an investigation because we wouldn't be able to find the person. That does not stop you from filing a claim with the police department. Next slide. Okay, next slide. That's still a continuation of that. Next slide. Bias-based profiling. This is by the police. It is illegal for law enforcement, police officers, peace officers to engage in a law enforcement action and intentionally act against someone based on their actual perceived race, national origin, color, etc., or any other information or circumstances that links a person or persons to suspected unlawful activity. Meaning, if you see a group of people of one protected class, national origin, you can't go up to these people. The police cannot go up to these people and start harassing them if they're just standing around and not causing any sort of crime. That's bias-based profiling because the police will be just singling out them either because of their national origin, their race, their age. You can't do that. These type of complaints, you know, like I said, they usually go to the police for the, it just escaped me, bias-based harassment, and you file a complaint with the police, and then the police, and then it'll come to us, or it'll go to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. We don't get too many police cases at the Commission on Human Rights. They usually go to the Civilian Complaint Review Board. But if a person believes they're being singled out, the police approach them because they're homeless. Homeless, meaning they might look at somebody who's of a particular national origin. They might be disheveled and stuff. The police may harass them. They could come to us. There's not much we can do about it, but we would refer them. Next slide. Retaliation. Retaliation under our law means you complain of discrimination, and as a result, your employer took adverse action against you, or your landlord took adverse action against you, or in a public accommodation, the business owner took action against you. If you report or you file discrimination internally or externally regarding a business, your employer or landlord, or you cooperated or assisted in an investigation against an employer, a landlord, or business owner, that's retaliation under our law, and that's a violation. Next slide. Okay. Just to let you know, the commission could get monetary remedies for people who have been discriminated against. And in addition to monetary settlements, they can also get non-monetary settlements, such as requesting people to either a landlord to give an apartment that a person was denied, or have the whole staff go for training because they were discriminating against someone. I was just called today to do a training for a school in the Bronx because the teachers are not allowing kids based on their religion to take tests on days, that they can't due to religious observances. So those are things that we can do. We can do training. Next slide. Okay. This is basically the end of the presentation. And just to let you know, if you need to reach out to us, you can reach us to 311, or you can call us at that number, 212-416-0197, or you can call me. We have a website. Go to the next slide. No. This is the link that if you want to get any information about what I talked about, here's the link here. The link will be sent to everybody because I know you can't take it off the slide. I already put it on an email. I sent it to Cynthia and she will send it to everybody. Listen, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I'm sorry it was so long, but just to let you know that this presentation is usually an hour and a half. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the commission and reach out to me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I think you did a good job. I think you did. I just have two questions. I don't know if somebody else may have some questions, but I do have two questions. One is the outcome. If someone put a complaint to the Commission of Human Rights, and that entity is guilty, what is usually the fine or the outcome that you get?
Okay. For instance, if a person was denied an apartment, okay, because they were living with children, and we found that out, what will probably happen is the apartment they probably wanted would probably be rented by the time that we get to it. So we would tell that landlord that if they have a comparable apartment that becomes available, that tenant, that family should be considered for that next apartment. And what they would have to do, they would have to let the commission know who are the people they have on a list for that apartment and who gets that apartment. So we would monitor it to watch. Okay. If a person was denied a promotion, we may be able to get the money they lost, meaning that if the promotion meant an extra $10,000 a year, for argument's sake, okay, and a year has gone by and the investigation found that the employer was wrong, we may be able to get that $10,000 for that person to make them a whole person again. And then if the person wants to apply for the next promotion, they can. If they don't have to. The commission could also order that company to pay fines to the city if we find that there's a pattern of discrimination with promotions. For instance, if they're only promoting men to certain positions, or they're only promoting people of a certain age to a certain position, we would monitor their promotions for about a year.
Okay. And my other question is, because some people are crazy and they just they do these discriminations so openly that you can I mean, it's so hard. But when you have someone who has the perception that was discriminated, but technically it wasn't discriminated, I guess. And this is like probably it was falsely accused. So how you deal with issues like that?
Well, first of all, discrimination is easy to charge, but not so easy to prove in a lot of cases. So what we do is, besides taking somebody's word, we look at evidence. We need to see evidence. So if you come to us and say, I believe I was discriminated based on my whatever protected class you pick, you're going to have to give us some evidence to show why you feel that way. You can't come to us and say, I think because I'm a man. I have no other inkling why. I just feel because I'm a man. That's what. That's not enough for us. You have to give us something to go on. You have to tell us, listen, the reason why I think it's because of my gender is because I noticed that that there are only women in this particular position that I've been trying to get into. That would give us something to go on. If somebody made a statement to you saying that, because of your national origin, they don't want people in your national origin in this position or living in this building, you need something to go on.
Okay.
And it's not always easy.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Does anyone have another question for Ms. Simmons?
I have a
You
question.
call me Belinda.
Go, Cynthia.
So they can't discriminate against you once you have if they ask for a criminal background. So what if someone's applying to work with children and what they got in trouble for has nothing to do with children?
Good
Yeah,
question.
we know that.
There are exceptions.
Okay.
Okay. So if you're going to be a police officer, they'll do a criminal background right up front, because they're not going to have you pass the test, go through the academy, and find out you committed a felony, because that was a waste of the police department's time. Same thing when it comes to being a teacher. If there's a nexus between the job you want and the criminal activity, then you can't get the job. I had a man call me several years ago. He was denied a position as a school teacher. He was convicted of child molestation. Now, did he have the right to file with us? Of course he had the right to file with us, because number one, he stated a claim. Arrest record and criminal record is covered under our law. Now, I can't tell him he couldn't file, but what I did tell him is, if we find that your conviction has anything to do with what you're going to be doing in employment, then you're going to lose the case. So he thought about it. He was a smart man and decided not to file.
Okay. What if it would have been a conviction for like marijuana? Because this is an issue that we have in this area. A lot of young kids get convicted of marijuana or substance abuse, and then when they go to apply for something, they don't get the job.
Okay. Now, that's fairly new, because they're starting to throw out cases where if you had a certain amount of marijuana, they're not going to hold it against you. So this is going to be hard. This is something that you would have to come to the commission. These students, as long as they're 18 and over, they could come to us, to the commission, and file a complaint. These are brand new cases. I don't know what they're going to do with those cases. But as long as they're not going to work in a pharmacy, okay, because that's directly related to the nature of their criminal history, they probably wouldn't get a job. But there probably may be other jobs they may be entitled to get. So we do this on a case-by-case basis. It's really difficult, but if you have any students or any young people, call me and we'll go from there.
I have another question. Just following what Cynthia was saying, but it's a little bit, it's more open. Something that employers are doing right, currently I'm doing. some of them look at Facebook social media accounts, but you don't know that they doing that, and maybe they find that you like parties or you like drinking, and they don't want someone who drinks or make party. I don't know, whatever. So have you have any of those complaints that people are bringing up to the Commission of Human Rights, saying that the employer didn't hire me because they saw my social media? Because right now they even saying that, oh, we want to see your social media.
That's not a violation of the human rights law.
Okay.
Social media is not a protected class. However, if they're only looking at a particular group of people and excluding them for a job, meaning if they're only looking at a person based on their national origin, let's say they're only looking at African Americans, then it would be discrimination based on race and color. If they're only looking at a certain age group and disqualifying a whole group of people in a particular age group, then that would be age discrimination. But just going to social media in and of itself, it's not a violation of the human rights law. That's why we try to tell people, stay off of social media if you're looking for a job.
True. Is anyone have another question? No more questions? So, Ms. Belinda, thank you for coming in today. It was really interesting, the information that you gave us. It opened at least my eyes, and I have a little broader understanding of what the Office of the Commission of Human Rights does. So as I said, I did a little research. I have a lot of resources that I got from your website that I will give out. Also, the people will have the opportunity to have the presentation, the one that you provided. So in case that they need additional information, they want to look at it on their own, they will have it. So thank you very much for coming in today, and give us that, great information.
Okay, and I'll keep you posted with COVID. As I get information, I will pass it on to Cynthia so she could disperse it, or later on in the year, maybe I'll just come back and just give you an update with COVID and the human rights law.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you,
So
Chairperson. I appreciate it. Chairperson and District Manager Acevedo, thank you so much. And
No
Cynthia.
problem, Ms. Simmons. Thank you, Ms. Simmons. Thank you.
Thank you. So going down the agenda, we have now old business. I know we spoke about some of the items already, but does anyone have an old business that I want to bring it to the table now? Any new business?
Mr. Chair, I don't know if I have any new business, but I just want to, remind people that this is the last meeting for the session. So this committee is not going to meet to September. So I don't know between now and then, how we can convey. I can certainly send emails, or Cynthia, the office, we can, send out messages. But there's nothing else really planned for this committee until September. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page with that.
Yes, and that's good too. That's good that you mentioned it. And as you said, we don't know what's going to happen in September, if we're going to meet in person or we are meeting. We're still meeting through the computer. So I guess eventually we will know, and you will let us know how we're going to do business after September.
That's right, Mr. Chair. Not a problem.
All right. Thank you. Any announcements?
Yes, our special events is going to be held tomorrow at noon. Anyone interested, just call us and we'll send you the link. And then we have our housing at 6.
Tomorrow.
Yes.
6. Any other announcement? All right. So that means that
I got Louis.
yes.
Just it stayed on my mind when you said that you're afraid to work next to people. So I just wanted to say something really, really quick. When you're vaccinated, that's going to protect you from getting sick. If a person is carrying the virus and you breathe something in, you're probably going to carry it and, deposit somewhere. So that's why they're saying you still have to be careful, but not afraid to work next to people. You just have to continue wearing, the face mask and continue doing what you're doing. But
Right.
you are protected. You're not going to get sick. You can probably pick it up, but you will not get sick. The vaccine is going to keep you from getting sick.
Yeah. No, I understand, but I'm listening to people talking, and I do get it. Because yes, you could pass it on, but maybe within your closely family members, they haven't gotten vaccinated either, and you all of a sudden give it to them, or I don't know.
That's why you got to wear a face mask, even if you've been vaccinated. I tell people, you got to cover your mouth and your nose. It's not, a chin guard. Cover your nose and your mouth, and that's the way we're going to protect ourselves. But I just stood thinking about what you said.
Yeah, because I'm listening to people talking and say, "Oh my God, oh, I didn't think about that before," but now so I just want to have the opportunity to see if the Commission of Human Rights have been working on something, or people have brought something to them, and I guess eventually things are going to be changing, because I've heard that some employers already requiring their employees to be vaccinated. Some of them are not, but some of them I have heard that they're already, and I guess because they're private, I don't know, but I heard that some of them are. So I guess this is part of the conversation that we're gonna keep listening from now on.
We're going
until-
to keep talking about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Julia.
You're welcome.
So if anyone else, there's no more announcements. So I just, required any motion to adjourn the meeting. And remember, our next final full board meeting will be the last Wednesday of this month. And
no,
after
it was
that,
the 23rd. The
at the 23rd,
23rd,
okay.
which is the
So then
fourth Wednesday. Yes.
our full board meeting, the last one of this session of the year, it will be June 23rd at 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So after that, any adjournment, how do you call
I
it?
make a motion.
A
I make a
motion
motion
for
to
adjournment.
adjourn.
Thank you, Julia. So second the
second it.
motion.
I second it, Sonia Ferguson.
Thank you, Sonia. So I see you soon on the last meeting, for now, at least until September, on the 23rd. Have a great day. And the outside is really nice, so go and have some fun.
Thank you, Louis. Take care,
Definitely.
everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Take care,
Have a
everyone.
good
Stay
summer.
safe.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy